Okay. Well, hello everybody and welcome again to another USA Technologies webinar. Thank you all for joining us. I am Adrian Austin, Product Marketing Manager here at USAT, and today we'll be talking about smarter reporting, particularly which reports we think every operator should have in their toolkit. Now, before we get started, I want to provide some basic guidance for the webinar today. You'll see on the right-hand side of your screen that there is a Go to Meetings question box. Here you can list any questions you have for our speakers today, and at the end of the presentation, we'll take time to answer as many of these as we can. We'll be collecting the questions throughout the whole presentation, so feel free to post your questions at any time. Today's webinar is presented by Max Elliot and Bob Hurley from USAT, as well as our special guest today, Tim Griebel from OneSource Office Refreshment. So if you've gone through the seed markets implementation process, you've probably talked with Max before. Max grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where he began working in high school at his family-run vending operation. After graduating, he joined up with the business full-time, and after 8 years, he was working as the operation manager for the business. In 2017, Maxwell joined at USA Technologies as a customer success manager, and we're very glad to have him. Max, thank you for hosting today.
Happy to do it.
Next up is Tim Griebel. Tim is the Director of Markets at OneSource Office Refreshments in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Tim began at OneSource 11 years ago as an OCS driver while he was earning his undergraduate degree at the University of Guiad-Mercy. Tim's current role has expanded to P&L responsibility for 75 micromarkets, generating over $4 million annually, while also overseeing the day-to-day activities of the OneSource service department. Tim, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And last but not least is Bob Hurley. Bob has built a 35-plus year career in vending, taking on a variety of roles from managing operations, coordinating and directing acquisitions, and leading business development. Bob's career in vending began in 1980, working for Canteen as a route driver during an era highlighted by manual route cards and the 4 C's, candy, cup soda, coffee, and cigarettes. Today, Bob resides in Fort Lauderdale, Florida with his wife, Nicole, who is also a 20-year veteran of the vending industry, and their son, Sergio, and 2 German shepherds, Kaiser and Sheba. Bob, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about during the presentation today, then I'll hand it over to Max. We will start by going over why we think reporting is a big deal and really not something that we see as optional, something everyone should be doing. Then Max will jump into some of the challenges that operators can see if they're not doing reporting on a regular basis. From there, we'll dive into the meat of the presentation and talk about the report that we really think every operator should know and have in their back pocket. And then Max will guide us through a live demo of how to create a few of these reports directly in Seed. At the end, we'll do a quick wrap up and quick key takeaways of the presentation, and then open up the floor to some Q&A. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Max to take it away.
Thanks, Adrian. So as Adrian said, the purpose of this webinar is to show you why it is important to run reports on a regular basis and what reports we think are most important for you to run so you can see what's going on in your business. So there can be a lot of excuses why not to run reports, such as urgent things come up, driver calls in sick, you don't have time to create custom reports, you don't know how to create custom reports, you don't know how to utilize that information, and you don't even know what the data you're looking at is. So we're going to run through some of the possible problems. So Tim, I'm going to ask you, in your experience, what are the types of problems that can arise from not making proper use of reporting?
Thanks. In my experience, I'm based in the Philadelphia region. Over the last decade, several operators have been forced to file bankruptcy or liquidate their businesses. I remember hearing some of the horror stories about the final days of these companies. These companies were being forced to pay distributors COD. They were going out in the morning, collecting cash out of their machines to beat payroll in the afternoon. And without reporting, I get the sense that they didn't even see the end of days coming. Without reporting me personally, I tend to focus on low impact activities. At OneSource, 42% of our revenue comes from our top 25 customers. I know when I run my reports, I need to focus my activities on keeping our top 25 customers happy and keeping our machines well merchandised and priced right. Without reporting, I tend to treat all customers equally. The whiny car dealership tends to get the same level of attention as the 1,000 employee distribution center, and that can have a huge impact on our business. The 1,000 person distribution center is what funds our 401k plans. The car dealership is really fat on the bone while we're driving from point A to point B. Without reporting, I tend to lose sight of operational inefficiencies. We could have stagnant or declining sales and increasing costs without being able to answer why. And finally, without reporting, there's just a limited view on the overall health of the company. Some of the questions I would ask our reports is, are we good at what we do? Are we getting better over time? Or are we getting worse? And reporting helps us answer all these questions.
Thanks, Tim. So the question is, how do we avoid these problems? So the first thing you need to do is set benchmarks and set goals. And Tim, can you talk a little bit? You said you compare yourself to the NAMA standards.
Yeah, I use seed reporting to help me reach my goals. My goals are to outperform the NAMA standards published in the industry census every year. I use the location and line of business report to compare my numbers against NAMA. My second goal is that I want to grow same-store sales year over year. So I use our same-store sales report. That helps me get a better understanding if we're getting better or getting worse. And finally, I use the profitability report to make sure I'm being a good employee and I'm getting better at what I do year over year to increase profitability through increasing contribution margin and decreasing our costs.
Thanks, Tim. Bob, I want to ask you the same question. What's your experience with benchmarking and what do you recommend?
Yeah, I've always placed the same importance on a system's ability to generate good reporting as I would the ability for you to monitor your own personal bank account or credit card activity. You need to be able to not only keep score, but track progress and identify both opportunities and highlight potential risk that exists in your business. It may be at the route level, it may be at the machine level, or it may be at the customer level. And that's the type of information you need that system to be able to proactively bring you on a regular basis so you can be reacting quick enough to whatever risk or opportunity exists.
Thanks, Bob. So the second thing is you need to take the time and run your reports regularly. So make them a part of your week, part of your month. You don't have to run every report every day, but there are some reports that you should run every day. And you can even delegate to the people that are actually going to be acting on that information. So have them run the reports, such as route manager, have them run their vending machine reports so they can see what's going on with the machines, so on. And the next thing, you got to focus on what's important and non-urgent versus what's urgent and non-important. Tim, what would you consider important and non-urgent versus urgent and non-important?
Yeah, so this is a semi-famous quote from a guy named Stephen Covey. He wrote that we should, as individuals, try and spend most of our time focusing on what is important and not urgent. And I think doing regular reporting is one of the most important things we can do for our companies. We can use reporting to drive so much of our daily activities. Reporting has helped me personally focus on driving increased revenue with price increases. It's one thing to do price increases across the board. It's another thing to do price increases at the locations that'll have the biggest impact for your business. So rather than focusing on trying to get price increases across the board, focus first on what price increases you can get to make the biggest impact fastest in your business. One of my activities that I focus on too is driving waste out of our company, and running regular waste reports, trimming par levels, cutting SKUs has helped us reduce waste tenfold, if I'm being totally candid.
Thanks for that, Tim. So the other thing we need to do is learn how to track what you want to track. Once you've set your benchmarks and your goals, then we need to find reports that tell you that information. A good way to do that, you can get with your CSM at Cantaloupe, and we'll teach you how to build some reports, or you can attend our Seed University. We do that once a year. It's a 2-day course, and we dive deep into all the different aspects of Seed. So the reports that you need to know, the first one we recommend is the location line of business report. This report helps you identify your highest volume locations and allows you to split out each line of business to see the most profitable segment of that location. And Tim, how's been being able to see this for your different locations helped you rank your business?
Sure. I mean, this is my go-to report. It's helped me define who we should be providing outstanding customer service to. When I look at this report on the screen, I see it's very top-heavy. So that's going to drive all my day-to-day activities. Do I have the right pricing? Do I have the right equipment at these top locations? Because these top locations deliver disproportionate results to the bottom of the bottom of the list.
Our next report is going to be the same store or same location report. This should be run to compare the same location for 2 different time frames, and you compare the growth of that account. And Tim, how often would you review this report, do you think?
This is a go-to report for me as well. I run it religiously every 4 weeks to compare sales of each location. When I look at this report, I see a 15% increase in sales. I see a reduction in profitability. I see waste has been reduced. These are all questions that we need to start asking our customers. So I would get my account management team involved. Hey guys, why are sales up 15%? Are there more employees? Do we need to reevaluate the equipment we have on site? What is driving our profitability down? Are we selling more items with a lower margin? Is this a time that we need to reevaluate pricing? All these questions should be brought up as just a normal course of business.
And the Spoilage Report helps identify machines that have high waste issues. And then once you've identified those machines, then you can focus on those, fixing it. And you should go to the merchandising wizard built into Seed, and you can revamp those machines to increase sales and make them more profitable. This payroll report gives you the ability to report by driver. So you can add filters, so you can only see the information that you want to see. But you can add formulas to this report as well, so Seed does the math for you. It makes payroll a lot faster. Tim, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 70% of my workload is driven by micro markets. In the past, before we were fully integrated with Seed, we'd offer our drivers 4 different buckets of pay. They'd have a base pay. They'd have a per unit commission on vending pay. They'd have a percentage of net sales for their micro market pay. And just to keep things confusing, we had a different percentage pay offered for office coffee deliveries. And so we pay weekly. I know it's very popular in the vending industry. So every week I would have to go out to 5 different systems and pull 5 different reports. I have to tease the data out. When you start pulling data from multiple reports, things can get sloppy, errors can be made. And so now that we're fully integrated with Seed, I've been able to just create a custom report, set the formulas I want to pay that vending bucket, to pay that base salary, to pay that commission off of markets. And it's been a game changer for me. Payroll has gone from a very sloppy process that would take me over an hour to a very smooth and efficient process that takes me under 5 minutes.
Thanks, Tim. And Bob, what efficiencies do you gain from this report, or how do you use this report?
No, I would echo a lot of what Tim said, especially the ability to look at all lines of business, because you may have a completely different compensation plan for your vending than you do for your micro market or your OCS, and you may have those different lines of business blended and done by the same driver, and you can build that structure of that specific commission plan to meet your lines of business and run a single report. The other aspect of it that I liked a lot was the ability to pull the information based on units sold as opposed to just top line revenue, because I think when you start to really look at your route efficiency and engage productivity, having that unit sold measure is a much more equal way of evaluating the productivity. You can have your top line revenue skewed by pricing, but when you're talking about units moved, it's an equalizer for your route productivity. So I like the fact that we can just add that into this report and pull that information down at the unit level.
Thanks, Bob. So our shrinkage report, if you're using seed markets, I would say this is a great report to run that helps you identify markets that have a high product shortage, and then you can focus on those markets and see where the problem actually is. Tim, how else would you use this report?
So I would use this report also as a driver coaching moment. When I look at this top customer with 166 short items on the course of a month, that could very well be just a driver error for whatever reason. I would use it as a tool to identify where the error came from and help correct that. I would use this report with a bit of caution. It's very easy to think that you're being robbed blind and have conversations with either your driver or your customer that aren't necessarily true. In my experience with this report in particular, the meat is in the middle. The extreme high ends of shrink are usually errors, and the extreme low ends are also errors as well. On the low end, a driver counts that there's 6 Doritos on the shelf, but for whatever reason, there might only be 5. In my experience, the meat of this report has been in the middle.
Thanks, Tim. So our accountability report helps identify cash product shortages or overages. The report compares cash counted to the decks of the machine by visit. Bob, why is this an important report to run, and how often do you recommend running it?
This is a report that I would definitely recommend running on a daily basis. This is really where your cash accountability begins, and you can set up a parameter within this report where you're looking at your worst case scenario. When you start to utilize this report, if you just say you want to look at every variance over $1, you're going to have so many machines on the report, it's going to cloud your view of where you really need to prioritize. Whereas if you set a level, say any variance over $20 or $30, you run the report, you see, just how much activity is there, and you start to hone in on those larger potential issues. And then as you start to see improvement, then you can start to bring that parameter down and tighten it up maybe to $10 or $5. I think the most important thing about this report and cash accountability in general is the fact that you're constantly looking at it, and there's an awareness with your drivers that this is something that you've put a lot of emphasis on. Just by them understanding that you're looking at it regularly, that's what's going to help drive that improvement and keep them, as accurate as possible with what they're doing within your business.
And Tim, how has the accountability report helped your company?
I speak from personal experience. I oversee the day-to-day activities of our service department, and so we always run this report. We run this report every day, and we compare it to the past. And so we had a particular service technician that was taking $5 out of machines. So he'd go to a location with 3 or 4 machines, and every first and third machine he would pull $5 from, and use the reasoning that he was depositing coin into the machine. So we were able to use this report. The service technician covered a territory that encompassed 3 different routes. So we were able to compare the timestamps on this report to the timestamps on the GPS on his vehicle, and start to create a pattern of behaviors. And after about 6 weeks, we were able to anticipate his next moves, and we were able to catch him in the act of stealing. And so ultimately we terminated his employment. But over the course of 6 weeks, we pegged $463 missing to his name. So it can have a huge impact on your business. Keeps people honest.
Yep. Thanks, Tim. So we've identified what we think are some key reports to running to give you an insight into what's going on in your business. Now I'm going to give you a seed spotlight report demo on how to build a couple of these reports. So Adrian, if you will pass over control to me. All right. So when you log into Seed, there is a report tab. We have Spotlight Reports, Report Writer, and then if you've saved reports from your report writer, they'll be under Saved Reports. Under the report writer, we do have pre-built reports. So vending real-time sales, this is sales that we get from the telemeter. So the driver hasn't necessarily been there yet, but you can see what the machine has sold. Micro market sales, those are also real-time. And we have vending restock sales. So this is from the time the driver was serviced to the next time the driver was serviced. And then we have our cash accountability. We have a simple one, and then we have a more detailed cash accountability report. For Spotlight reports, we also have pre-built reports. So we have all sales, if you want to, so that'll take all lines of business. If you want to see just your delivery sales or OCS, we have that. And then we have vending, restock sales, and warehouse sales, or transactions and receiving. For this one, I'm going to go into all sales. If you hit the little plus sign next to it, it'll expand the options for you. And you can run your all sales by asset, by branch line of business, however you want to break that out. For this example, I'm going to use the location line of business. And then I'm going to put my date range in, and we can filter to a specific location. So to add a filter, you go in the add filter box, and we want to filter to location. We'll select location, and we give you the option equals, or you can choose a different option. If it equals, it has to match your location name exactly. Or if we say contains, you can just do part of a location, like Mad Rush, and we'll run that report. Sorry, in the wrong place. All right, let's do that again. Add my filter to location. Contains Mad Rush and my date range. So then this will break out that location. We have market sales, we have vending, and we have delivery. So we can see how much of that location, how much each line makes up of that location and the profitability of each line. So the next one, if we go back to Spotlight Reports and we say New Report, this is where we're going to build a report from scratch. So the first thing it asks for, what do you want to see? So one row for each, we want to see each machine or each asset. And then we populate some fields that we think you're going to want with that. If you don't want those columns, you can click on them and there's a delete button. So we don't really care about the customer code or location code. If we want to reorder stuff, we want a route number up here, we can click and drag it. And then we can click and add columns. So for this report, we're going to do a spoiled report. So we want to know our spoiled units. And we want to know the cost of those spoiled units. Give us something to compare to. We'll see how many units were added to this machine in that same time frame. And we'll also see how many sold. And let's do total revenue as well. So it's pretty simple to add columns to a report. You just start typing them in. And then we also have formulas. So you can add a formula column, which is similar to Excel. And then we can name it. Let's call it spoiled percent. And how you do it, you click in the formula box. And we want our spoiled cost, and we're going to divide it by the total revenue. It's going to ask what type of field that is. We're calculating a percent. And then we can put our date range in here as well. Run report. And then if you want to see your highest spoiled percent, you can click on these headers and it'll show you highest to lowest. We can also add filters if you just want to see spoils over a certain quantity. Oops. Spoil quantity. And we can say it is greater than or equal to, let's say, 20 units. And we'll run that report. And then that filters it down for you. The next report I'll show you is our payroll report. So you can start out from your all sales, and if you go to driver and line of business, there's an edit, a copy, and that way we can add some fields to it. And let's say we want to add our fill units, or yeah, added. And are sold. And then we can also add a formula. So we'll say, let's take our pre-tax revenue and we're going to multiply that by 5%. And this is going to be a dollar amount. So currency. We'll say it's driver commission. We can also add a filter if we just want to see a particular driver. You can add filters for that as well. And we'll run this report. See, we need a date range. We can run report. I think I did something wrong, but I'll just get rid of those for right now. Let's see if that helps. Okay, and this will give you the calculation that we've calculated. Another report that I've gotten a lot of requests for is for rebates. For Mars or Hershey, they are asking for the number of facings per machine. So to do that, we can start a new report for each asset. And we're going to add a column for current planogram selections. We'll also add a filter for manufacturer. And we'll say it equals Mars. And we can also filter, we don't care about machines that, like beverage machines, they're not going to have Mars items in them. So we can filter to the asset class. And we'll say it equals snack machines. And we can run that report. And it'll tell you each machine how many facings of Mars items it has in that machine. If you want more detail, we can do that same report, but we can do a complex report. So the complex report lets us add two things that we want to see. So first we want to see asset, but then we want to see item level detail. So we can see what Mars items are in those machines. And we'll do the same thing. We'll add planogram selections. And we'll put our filter in there for manufacturer again. We'll say it equals Mars. And we can run that report. And we can filter or sort it so all of our machines are together. We can see that this machine has M&M Peanut, Twix, and Snickers. So we can get rid of these zeros because they're not actually in that machine, but they are an item. So we can say current selections is greater than 0. And then it shows you that. So I'm going to turn it back over to Adrian. Adrian.
Okay. Am I figuring out how to bring it back? Give me 2 seconds. There we go.
Okay. So key takeaways. You want to set goals and benchmarking. Make a schedule and stick to it so you're running your reports on a regular basis and you're acting on those reports. Take time to learn your current VMS. Like I said, a seed university is a good place to do that. So I want to thank Tim and Bob for sharing your experience, Adrian for hosting it. I'm going to turn it back over to Adrian for questions.
Thanks, Max. And big thanks to all three of our presenters, Max, Tim, and Bob, for leading a great presentation on smarter reporting and giving us a couple examples of reports to run. We'll be getting going on Q&A shortly. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the question box to your right. So the first one that came in earlier was directed at Tim. Do you have some real-world specific examples from using reporting and some positive benefits that brought you?
Yeah, there are, if I'm being honest, too many to list. Top of mind would be, we started integrating it around 2013. Somewhere in 2014, Frito-Lay took a 3-cent per unit price increase across their portfolio. In the past, we would have identified non-core Frito-Lay flavors and tried to make substitutions with more cost-effective products. One of those products that we identified was Cheetos. So we tried to get a local manufacturer to sell us a comparable product. It was the Herz cheese sticks. And so we did pump the brakes at first. We set up a small sample test to make sure that the Herz cheese sticks would sell as well as Frito's Cheetos. We used the data to find out that I think there was for every 10 Fritos every 10 Cheetos that sold, only about 4 Hers cheese sticks sold. So even though it was a more cost-effective SKU to sell, because of the reduction in turns, we would have actually cost ourselves somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 in profit. And $20,000 in profit is the equivalent of having 10, 12, 15 soda and snack accounts over the course of a year. So it was a huge preventative tool for us. We got out of our own way and let the kind of numbers make the decision for us.
Great, thanks, Tim. Bob, do you have any insight as well? I know it's directed towards Tim, but any specific real-world examples from reporting that you've seen from your side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I've lived this, and I see a lot of other operators doing very similar things, and a lot of it is based on the technology that's being added to business, to the industry today. And there's a lot of cost associated with the telemetry, with the VMS, with Lightspeed, that kind of thing. And there's got to be a way to drive an ROI for that investment. And, I've seen it myself. I was with a company where we went in, fully on technology. We connected every single machine with Cantaloupe. We implemented Lightspeed right from the beginning. And it was extremely important for us when we made a significant acquisition to be able to see how we were going to justify that acquisition investment along with the technology. And that came through, very closely being able to monitor our route productivity, being able to create a different compensation structure than what existed before, where it was based on units, where it was equal across all the routes. And that's what really helped us not only get that ROI that we were seeking, but it also enabled us to retain our best employees, because they ultimately were able to run much larger routes, and they were, compensated accordingly because of that. And, it's one of the toughest challenges any operator is facing is finding good employees. And when you can identify those strongest people and you can have them in your most critical accounts, and you can retain those people because you're paying them more than they're going to be able to get just about anywhere else, that's where the system also really pays for itself. So that's the kind of experience that, I can relate to the reporting capability, that the payroll report that Max demonstrated was my key scorecard to look at where we were at from week to week. And then, how as we got into consolidation, we were able to just reduce staff and raise that productivity on our routes.
Great, thanks, Bob. So next question is back to you, Max, something that back on one of the reports that you presented on, for the Mars products report and the rebates. Can you pick specific Mars products, for example, only Snickers, M&M Peanuts, Twix, etc.?
Yes. So on that rebate report, you can add an item filter, and you can say it equals whatever item it is that you're looking for. Or if there's multiple Mars items and you don't want items on that list, like Skittles, maybe they don't qualify, so you can say does not equal Skittles, and it'll show you all the other Mars items except for Skittles.
Got it. So next question is maybe something that we breezed over a little bit, but Max and maybe Bob can speak to this. What is Seed University?
So Seed University is a class that we bring all of the CSMs to, so there's 7 of us, and we dive into every segment of Seed. So we will touch on reporting, we'll touch on commissions, we'll touch on merchandising your machines, we'll do scheduling, we'll show you the warehouse. So it's a deep dive into Seed. We show you all the aspects of it, and then we give you one-on-one time with us as well, so you can ask questions Maybe if you don't want to ask them in front of the class, you can ask us. We give little breaks, and then we'll walk through that stuff with you.
Got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So here's another quick short question, but what is the spoilage report for? What's the goal that we're trying to find from that report?
So the goal of the spoilage report is to identify machines that have, or markets that have high spoilage. And then once you have the high spoilage, like, because that's costing you money, you're not able to sell that product. So then you need to either go into your merchandising wizard or go into that machine, lower pars, so you don't have all that extra product that's not selling, or change out that product altogether because obviously the customer doesn't like it, and replace it with something different. And then when you reduce your spoilage, you're having something in there that's selling, and you're making more money.
I would second a reduction in spoilage is a dollar for dollar contribution to the bottom line. You don't want to reduce spoilage so much that it's zero because you'll impact sales. But if you can limit your exposure to waste as much as possible, you're really going to be able to drive results for yourself.
Great. So another question that's in a similar vein. So the question asker is saying, I've had employees justify cash shortage, saying that they've added coin to the machine. Which report helped you recognize the theft? And what information on there helped you see it wasn't as they said?
The DEX file reports exactly what's being fed into the machine. Correct me if I'm wrong, and forgive me, most of my focus is on micro markets, so it's a little more cut and dry for me. My colleague Jared handles most of the cash accountability for vending. But the DEX file tells when a 10, a 5, and a 1 is uploaded. And if you're $5 short and you're missing a $5 bill, and there's no cash in the coin bag to offset that $5 went somewhere. If it happens once, is it a fluke? Anything could happen. But if it happens repeatedly over time, you should probably start digging a little deeper.
Great, thanks, Tim. So next question, pay scales were mentioned earlier. Do most companies have two separate percentage payouts for vending machines and market stock? So Bob, this might be a good question for you with your experience looking at multiple customers. And then, yeah, Tim, not sorry to cut you off, but you as well for your insight.
You know, for my operation, we were paying unit commission for both vending and micro markets. So we had the same structure, whether it was a market unit sold or a vending unit sold. I don't know if Tim's doing something a little bit different.
I would love to tell you that I'm doing the greatest pay scale in the entire industry, but I don't know that to be true. Our current pay scale is kind of more of a reflection of who we were as a company. Starting in 2016, we started integrating our micro markets into Seed, and now we're fully integrated. But prior to that integration, we had separated vending and market drivers. So our market drivers were doing exclusively markets and a little bit of coffee delivery here and there. It wasn't fair for us to pay our market drivers off a unit sold because most of their revenue, or not most of it, a significant portion, about 25% of their revenue was being generated by fresh food. So if you had a $10,000 route and 2,000 of that was coming from food, you'd have really, on an item level, a very low performing route. So we couldn't pay people a livable wage paying off the units. We had to pay off the revenue. And then several years ago, the Department of Labor was going to implement an overtime rule. And so we structured our pay scale for our market drivers to be commission-based to avoid the Department of Labor overtime rules and pay our people a fair salary. Now that we're integrated, we're kind of starting to transition over to a more balanced route of coffee, vending, and market service. So we're trying to eliminate the number of buckets that we pay people. We're trying to transition to a per unit basis. And because there's a more balanced route, people can still make a good wage. But we just have some long tenured route drivers. We don't want to pull the rug out of under their feet. They're used to making a set amount of money. So we just keep them on the same pay scale now. They're grandfathered in. And we hope they stay forever. But once they do ultimately choose to move on, if they ever do, our new hires are coming on a more balanced pay scale. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of my situation.
Sounded right to me. So, Max, back to you. On the same store, same location reports, how do you specifically run this report? Can you run it in one report, or do you run the sales report twice on the same location?
You're going to have to run the sales report twice on the same location for 2 different date ranges and compare the two. We don't, currently you can't run 2 different time frames in one report.
Got it.
So
Nope, makes sense. So next question, what is the process used for removing vending machines from the field in a checks and balances standpoint? So I think this means, okay, so you're bringing a machine back in, you're having to deal with inventory coming back, you're having to deal with money coming back. What's the standard process or the best practices for making sure that this is all stays on the books?
So what we recommend on how you should pick up a machine, you're going to do a final service on it. So once, either while it's on location or once you get it back to your warehouse, you're going to schedule that machine to be serviced. You're not going to fill it with anything, so you'll zero out your pars, so nothing's pulled for that machine. But then you're going to go in there, and the driver or the service tech is going to enter into Seed Mobile the product that they removed, if there was any spoiled product, so that's all accounted for under that machine. Then you're also going to collect the money. The driver or service tech will put a bag number in Seed Mobile, and then that money will be counted through the coin counter and then applied to that machine at that last service. Once you've done that, then you can pick up that machine from the location in Seed and put it back into the warehouse.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. Well, I think that's a great place to end it. Big thank you again to our presenters, Max, Tim, and Bob, for being here today. And another big thank you to everyone that joined us. In case you're interested in rewatching the presentation or sharing with someone else that might be interested, we'll be sure to send out a replay of the presentation later this week. So keep an eye out for that email. And until next time, everyone have a great week. And we hope to hear from you again soon. Take care. Bye.